Sentra, Homeworld, Zeit, a resource-rich world known for its dense forests. Zeit lacks any major oceans. Instead, multiple continents are split by so-called long seas that create a web of countless islands and small continents. It's very humid world, where a lot of water is in atmosphere in form of eternal fog, or in underground oceans that span entire world. What is interesting is that Zeit home system is quite bizarre. The heart of a star system has two stars with singular center of gravity. Those two stars dance around each other in stable distance. Those two stars are surrounded by different planets, but also on a strange far orbit there is a third, very small star which needs exactly 300 years to go around the orbit. This stellar position leads to hotter months in the year, when the planet is illuminated by all three stars. But with third star orbit, there is a moment in this 300-year-long cycle where it's closest to the two central stars. Zeit experiences the harshest rises of temperature in those periods. Forests dwindle and die, transforming the planet of eternal rainforests into a savanna. This period, known as Years of Fire, are part of natural life cycle of the world, with many animals changing their behavior or hibernating in deep shadow. After the period passes, water that evaporated comes down in massive rainfalls, causing floods before great forests are reborn and grow again in shocking speed. Sentra cities are usually built in style of massive hanging cities placed far above canopies of the great forests. Physical characteristics. Type: arboreal mammalian reptile primate. Height: males 1.9 meters, females 1.7 meters. Weight: males 90 kilograms, females 70 kilograms. Coloration: extremely varied, with male using bright, cold colors like blue, when females have warm colors like red and yellow. Diet: omnivore. Senses: very good sense of smell, great hearing, echolocation, infrared vision. Forms of communication: vocal. Reproduction: live birth, pregnancy 10 months. Lifespan: 100 years. Maturity: 17. Special traits. Sentra share characteristics of both reptiles and mammals. In some way they can be seen as something in between. They give birth to live young and do feed their children with milk, but they have scales and long tongue which they use to smell the air. Sentra males are also known for their flexible white crests. Sentra have a sharp bone pointing backwards from their hand. It's a remnant of the wing membrane, as Sentra's ancestors had the ability to glide and had primitive wings. Currently, this bone acts like bizarre natural tool and weapon, as well as sign of maturity and sexual appeal. Sentra are arboreal creatures with hands, feet, and even tail proficient at moving on the treetops. Males are bigger and stronger gender, and as such take dominant role in this society. Sentra have a beak But what is interesting is that they have something akin to teeth as well. While the beak is sharp and perfect for cutting any food they eat, behind the beak there is a row of flat, tough teeth, perfect for grinding. Sentra sleep upside down, using their feet to hold onto something. But what is interesting is that they create sphere-like nests, so even if they detach during the sleep and fall, they won't fall to their deaths. What is very interesting is that Sentra's tail ends with a stinger, but one that doesn't work anymore. Clearly, Sentra's ancestors had the ability to create some kind of venom, but lost this ability. Sting can be used as a weapon, and even if it breaks off, it can regrow quite easily. Psychological characteristics. Sentra are interesting people. They are industrious and creative, but also have natural inkling for greed. This last characteristic was most likely caused by the natural cycle of life on their world. The hot months and years of fire demand gathering as many resources and food to survive and endure the blazing periods of 3 suns. Because of their planet position, Sentra developed idea of industrialism quite quickly and concept that those who are prosperous are in fact blessed, for they can endure the years of fire. This quickly transformed into a system of feudalism with great popularity of slavery. The masters ruled from their palaces and could endure the years of fire without breaking a sweat, when the people were nothing more than tools. This idea survived all the way to the space age, when megacorporations took over the planet and continued to exploit the majority of the population. Things changed, however, because of a coalition who spread the idea of a greater good and caused general uprising of oppressed people. The slaves brought down the slavers, and Sentra society changed completely. From extremely greedy and capitalist society, Sentra are now egalitarian, collectivist, and social-focused society of victorious revolutionaries. Modern Sentra adopted the idea of a greater good, with their revolutionary ideas of freedom, unity, and equality of all people. Age of anarcho-capitalism caused a revolutionary reaction of control, and now the state is the biggest player on Sentra markets and controls everything. Goods are equally distributed between population, and hoarding goods is seen as act of treachery. Sentra despise slavery and image of nobility, while also being fanatically loyal to the party and leaders of the revolutionary movement. Sentra as a species care for the young and their future and usually mate for life. With current revolutionary ideas, sexual freedom is on all-time high and more casual relations are accepted by the society. Sentra have great appreciation for long-lasting art, as they are biologically inclined to see much of what they build being destroyed by the years of fire and harsh, hot months. That's why creating something long-lasting is very important to those people. Sentra are great traders, diplomats, and deal makers, although when before those deals were made to ensure prosperity of a few, now they are made in the name of many. History. As mentioned above, Sentra have quite long and dark history. The earliest tales of their people speak of slave kingdoms where few ruled over many with an iron fist. The few gathered all resources and food, their houses were able to survive and thrive even during the years of fire, when simple people starved and their life's work fell apart. Through the ages, this slavery took many forms. Sometimes the great lords granted people freedom only in name, while keeping them close under control. Revolutions and rebellions were crushed, or few that succeeded turned to the same evil as the empires they abolished. At the start of the Space Age, after a war of burning, great countries of the world fell into chaos and disarray, and great corporations took over. Simple fact that those corporations had secured assets in the void when the world was consumed by devastating war gave them all advantage they needed. Soon mosaic of slave kingdoms fell apart and was replaced by Hashun conglomerate, the great alliance of corporations, who took their chance and, exploiting the weakness of lords and kings, took over the entire world. So began the age of true anarcho-capitalist corporate alliance. Technology advanced, and Sentra managed to begin colonization of neighboring planets and even star systems. They managed to develop impressive sublight engines, allowing them to reach nearby star systems rather quickly, even though they didn't have access to true FTL drive. During exploration, they found a derelict vessel of a strange design. Sentra had no idea that by chance they found a lost vessel of the Imperium of Man that somehow ended up in real space near their growing empire. From there, they managed to recreate warp drive and Gellar field, although their vessels were pale imitations compared to Imperial vessels. They could do only calculated jumps, but even with only that, Conglomerate secured a small region of space and colonized 8 worlds. Around 478th year Millennium 39, they made first contact with forces of the coalition. They were suspicious at first, but vision of trade and profit made them establish proper contact and diplomatic relations. Seeing the cruelty of the conglomerate, some members of the coalition called for intervention and to break the chains of the enslaved. Tau, however, blocked this. At the time, Mekian Commonwealth was getting close to becoming a new member. Open war would most likely prove radical opponents right and turn the Mekian population opinion against the coalition. They couldn't be seen as aggressors in the conflict. So they decided on a more subtle move. Coalition started to quietly sending agents and spreading the idea of a greater good through the population. It took time and was hard to accomplish, with conglomerate keeping close eye on the population, but Tau were fine playing the long game. In time, a revolutionary movement, founded and partially directed by the coalition, spread out through the conglomerate. Terrorist attacks, acts of disobedience, sabotage, and more became more and more common. Conglomerate figured out the coalition were the ones responsible, and in their deluded vision of grandeur, they began preparations for war against the coalition. The idea of open war was laughable for the coalition. Conglomerate didn't have enough ships to threaten the merchant navy and had almost no contact with coalition military, as their leaders preferred to stay in their gilded palaces. What the conglomerate didn't expect was that newly trained soldiers were revolutionaries and used their new skills and weapons to begin outright revolution, refusing to fight against same people who gave them hope. Seeing bloody revolution, coalition silently moved assets into the region, ensuring victory of revolutionaries, which they did in 517th year Millennium 39, after 3 years of war. New revolutionary government turned their attention towards creating new government and ensuring that no opposition to them would remain. Coalition stood back when revolutionaries exacted 8 long years of terror upon the wider populace. This was a calculated move on the side of the coalition. They knew how revolutions work, and they knew that population would be happy to accept their figurehead if it would mean end to the terror. Which did happen in 525th year Millennium 39, when a new young politician managed to end the age of terror and create constitution for now remade Zayt Confederation. This new state started as puppet of the Tau Empire. However, that changed because of a fifth coalition war. Unfortunately for Sentra, their region of space was cut off from the rest of the coalition by the massive Orc War for around 25 years. Sentra survived by standing their ground and protecting what little territory they had. Add to that fact that in that time, Ethereal Supreme was Tau supremacist, and people of the Confederation managed to cut the puppet strings, keeping them in place. After the siege of Zayt Confederation was broken, Tau tried to reestablish their position as puppet master, but failed. Help with reconstruction after the war didn't let them regain their position either. In the same way, 6th Coalition War, where Coalition once again was right on the front line, made them more independent members of the Coalition. Because of those events, Sentra became more independent and autonomous member of the Coalition, with their own revolutionary idea of the greater good, seeing it as a force of liberation from shackles of slavery. Thankfully, as time passed, those revolutionary ideas didn't really spread, so Sentra stand as an island of their own variant of the greater good. Joining the coalition, 535th year Millennium 39, 4452nd year Era of Unity. After the period of revolutionary terror with coalition's puppet in place, Sentra joined the coalition as a full member. They were a small part of a wider coalition, but had a lot of potential. Status in the coalition: Autonomous Ally. Because of long siege during the 5th Coalition War, when they were cut off from the rest of the coalition, Sentra developed a very independent and self-reliant vision of their new state. They see their revolutionary ideas as another way to interpret the greater good, and although the fires of the revolution died down, the origin of this new state are very clear in the mind of Sentra. They are a proud nation of people who broke the chains of their oppressors and now fight alongside other members of the coalition to break all chains of all slaves. Government: Revolutionary Confederation of Zayt Peoples Kankors is the full name of a nation, but they are usually known as Zayt Confederation, or simply the Confederation. As name suggests, Confederation is made of multiple Kankors. Each Kankor is semi-independent region or district with comparable size of population that gets one representative. Confederation is technically a multi-party, but all parties are required to share certain parts of ideology. The entire state is party-run. The people of given Kankors vote on party representatives to Revolutionary Supreme Council, where decisions are made and from which entire nation is controlled, including the economy. Role within the coalition: Confederation isn't considered a big player in the coalition. They aren't as powerful as Mekians or Ostensi Council, or even the Krut, but still, they are an important member of the coalition. They started as a weak puppet, but because of their experience, they created a potent navy and ground military assets, not to mention very efficient and powerful industry, which was born out of necessity of supplying their frontline troops when they were cut off from the rest of the coalition. While Sentra themselves aren't as spread out as some other species, there are few people who would mock them, especially since their territories grew since joining the coalition. Confederation can deploy potent military assets onto the battlefield. While much of their technology is based on Tau designs, period of isolation gave them a unique Sentra flair to it. They developed their own battlesuits, ground and air vehicles, as well as armors and weapons better adapted to their anatomy. Soldiers of the Confederation are extremely efficient in urban and forest environment. Their natural ability to climb and move between treetops, giving them advantage over majority of more conventional foes. Their naval assets are similarly quite impressive, with Confederation Merchant Navy being especially worthy of attention. Despite the fact that age of conglomerate has long ended, Sentra are still great traders, and they are valued for their negotiation skills within the coalition. And while Tau were somewhat bitter about losing them as a puppet, Sentra showed that their current autonomy made them into more powerful and useful ally. Sentra proven that they can hold a line and defend even against most brutal foes.
Yeah.